Hi, I'm Brian Levy. I'm the Chief Relationship Officer with Manchester Care Homes and Cambridge Caregivers. This is the Manchester Living Podcast. The purpose of the podcast is to help people navigate the complex maze of elder care. Today's episode is called Living in a Moment. On episode 38, we discussed how to communicate with people with brain change with Teepa Snow. Today, we are going to address a wide range of topics, almost like the top drawer in your kitchen that's full of everything. That's today's episode. But first, here's a clip of Teepa's TED Talk.
We're going to change habits and behaviors. And to do that, it's going to take more than a lecture. It's actually going to take some behavior change on our part. So what I want you to do with your partner is to take a look at them. And if this person is doing this, I want you to look at them and say, "You don't like this, do you?" Try that. See what happens. Because what they're going to say is, "No, I don't." And here's what you're going to say next. Here's your new skill. Tell me about it. Tell me about it. Tell me. Tell me what it is that is making you angry and frustrated. Because until I see your point of view, I'm going to really struggle. And the skill that I need to develop is that sixth skill in the brain, in the frontal, prefrontal. Take your hand right here and bring it out. What we need to realize is everyone has a point of view. Everyone has a point of view, a belief set, where they're seeing things from. But what the most mature skill in your frontal, prefrontal cortex is, do this, letting go of your point of view and seeing the other person's point of view. And once you see their point of view and you understand why they think what they think, why they're doing what they're doing, suddenly then, I have new possibilities, because once I see where they're coming from, I can choose how I do what I do a little differently. But I can only do that when I let go of my point of view and I get curious about yours.
If you haven't seen it in its entirety, I highly recommend it. Like I said, on today's episode, we're going to cover a wide range of topics. My guests are Teepa Snow, owner and founder of Positive Approach. Welcome, Teepa.
Thank you.
My other guest is Sandi Levy, Director of Nursing for Manchester Care Homes and Cambridge Caregivers. She happens to be my wife.
Same last name.
Go figure.
I noticed that right
away.
away.
You did, didn't you? You're
I did.
sharp.
Yeah.
You're brain change
Nothing
over
gets
here.
past you. Now.
Right, exactly.
I'm not sure about that.
Teepa, let's start with you. Can you share a bit about yourself and the work you do?
So I'm an occupational therapist by training. I've been in practice 45 years. And I have worked in just about all sort of settings that there are when it comes to senior care or brain change care. So head injury, stroke, acute care, hospice, community, you name it. And there's been a time I've done it. I've taught at medical school, taught at School of Nursing, occupational therapy, therapy assistant. Yeah.
You've really done it.
I've done a lot.
Sandi, can you share a bit about yourself and the work you do?
My background is in pediatrics. I was a teacher before I was a nurse. And after about 20 years of pediatric nursing, I decided to venture into the world of elder care and haven't looked back.
Great.
So,
glad to have both of you on the show today.
Thanks.
Teepa, I want to start with you. How does medication intersect with elder care, and what should families know?
Less is more. And that every time you add a medication, you increase the risk that there are going to be side effects, interactions, or potential problems.
Interesting. Sandi, what's your experience with medication and elder care?
It's very interesting. We prefer on every level, when we feel like someone needs some type of redirection, to redirect them with our residents. But we do have to use medication, and we discuss that with families prior to admission to make sure they're on board, because I want them to be safe and feel good. And I always say it doesn't feel good to our residents when they're lashing out if they get into a moment of sundowning. So it's our job to help them feel better. I don't love to use it, but we do have it on board when needed.
Great. And I think it's important to mention, when people come to Manchester Care Homes, they've come from possibly a hospital and then to rehab and then back home and then back to rehab and then to a doctor and then all of a sudden they're in our home with...
There are a lot of moving parts.
A lot of moving parts.
Yes.
It's time to reset. Oftentimes they have two of the same medicines that are doing the same thing.
We navigate through that pretty clearly.
Good. What are effective strategies for managing challenging behaviors such as aggression or wandering? Teepa, you want to go first?
My start is look at it as a challenging situation rather than a challenging behavior. Because I want to really investigate the possibility that part of the problem is not the person, it's what we're trying to do with the person or what's around the person, who else is around the person, or what's gone on before. Because sometimes we underestimate the power we have to make a difference. So for me, really being clear, I don't want to assume it's you. I want to take a step back and go, okay, he's really unhappy with what's happening. What happens if I say, Brian, you are so angry right now?
I'm going to get defensive and say, what are you talking about, Teepa? I'm not angry.
You're not angry.
Right.
Oh, I thought you were. I'm so sorry. Yeah, something wasn't going right though. Okay. And that gives you a chance to investigate what triggered for you. And I don't know, but I do know sometimes we overblame the person when in fact we did something, like I said, oh, that's not your mug. Something that simple. Mm-hmm. If you believe that is your mug, I'm the one that actually started it.
Got it. Sandi, you want to add to that?
I agree with Teepa 100%. And it's knowing their triggers. That is a huge part of what we do on a daily basis. Because if we can know what it is that upsets them, like she said, do we say something? Did we act a certain way? Whatever it was, knowing how to redirect them and help them, help the caregivers understand also how to navigate that situation.
This is a total rabbit hole and we're not going to go down it, but I want to point out with regards to what we're talking about, continuity of care is so important because the more consistent we are with the same faces in front of the people we're caring for, the more they get to know them.
When we change people, we change the dynamic of the relationship. And so, but we also have to appreciate after a while, if I'm getting tired of this interaction, we need to watch me and know whether I need a break as much as the person I'm supporting might need a break.
Right. Great point. How can we focus on improving quality of life by meeting individuals where they are in their journey? Sandi, I know that's your all-time favorite phrase. So you want to address that first?
I think just meeting them where they are, entering their world and, helping our residents and clients understand that it's okay. You're validated. This is how you feel. This is your normal life now. So we need to enter that and let them know that we are right there with them. And that's how Teepa demonstrates that in her course. The hand, the holding, the eye contact. I have learned so much from her. It's unbelievable. But yes, that is the model that I follow. 100%.
And I would say, unless we're willing to go where they are, we don't know how to help them back from where they are to a safer place. Yeah. I've got to be willing to go wherever you are in that moment, even if it's a weird place, and try to figure out how do we get back from here? Because you got where you were and you're there alone if I'm unwilling to go and be there with you for a minute and go, hey, Brian, would you do me a big favor? If you come over here, I could really use your help. And suddenly we're leaving the place of distress.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting. I remember having breakfast with one of our residents and he was staring at his Cheerios. I'm like, oh, where are we going? And he picked one up and the spoon and he picked it up and he showed it to me and he says, my cell phone. And that was an opportunity for, it was a fork in the road. Do I say, get a grip? Or do I say, well, now you can call me? I'm glad I thought on my Teepa toes.
Yes, you did.
It's a new term. All right. When a loved one is resistant to care early in their decline, what is the most effective and compassionate approach in this situation?
Realize you're probably not right.
Ooh, flat out.
I mean, in that moment, whatever you think you're trying to do to help, you're probably not right. It's not helping. So acknowledge, wow, you don't want me to do that. Just an acknowledgement. This is really hard for me. I'm trying to help and you don't want what I'm trying to do. I could really use your help then.
So just flat out, real honest communication.
I think that's underestimated because I think early on, the idea that in family, you're my dad. And I forget that in the midst of my frustration
Right.
of you being illogical. And in that moment saying, this is really hard, but it's not working. Yeah. I could really use your help.
That's good. We'll go on to recognizing there are many stages of a brain change diagnosis. What activities are meaningful to engage someone in living with that diagnosis?
I think step number one is acknowledging where they are. What do they still have available skill-wise and use-wise, and where are they not? So if I'm looking at that cup going, where did that come from? Well, then saying, well, take a drink is probably not the best answer. You're wanting to know where it came from. I thought it was yours. Maybe not. Take a look, see if, but to really acknowledge, wow, they're having a hard time figuring out a cup. That's real different than, is this the one I had or is that one mine?
It's a tough choice.
I know.
Yeah.
Well,
It's very confusing.
yeah, they're the same, aren't they?
Right.
Yeah, well, and for us, it's like, okay, well, that's okay. But in that moment, if it's not okay with me, pause and go, wow, she's really wondering. So shall we put Teepa on here? Maybe that'll help me be more comfortable that this is mine. That's yours. Because right now I'm feeling sort of territorial about my stuff.
So really understanding their baseline and where they are.
Yeah.
So you know where to go.
So I know how to support, because what's the difference between my name's on here and my name's not on here?
Right.
Does it matter to you?
No.
Does it matter to you? But it matters to me.
It does matter to you.
Mm-hmm.
So if it matters to me, are you willing to support me in that?
Certainly. It's a good answer. How can one persuade their loved one to accept the care they need without damaging the relationship?
Don't be the bad guy.
That's what I was just going to say. I always tell adult children, don't be the bad guy.
Don't be the bad guy. Let somebody else be the bad guy. Assign a bad guy. Someone who is able to give up a relationship in order to gain that. And then you can be mad at the person with them. Say, I wish that doctor would quit pushing for stuff. But, for right now, Sandi, I hate it for us. But he's saying we have to try it. So I'm willing to try it if you are.
Willing.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
But we're going to talk about it next time we come in.
Mm-hmm.
Come on.
I think that's a great idea. Yes.
Lawyer, financial advisor, doctor,
Minister,
fireman, somebody.
whoever it might be, whoever it has to be the guy who's saying the thing that I don't like. And then I can support you. I'm not saying we're not doing it, but I am saying, I hear you.
Right. There's a little good cop, bad cop in
There is a
somewhere.
little good cop, bad cop.
I did an episode recently and it touched me, and I'm going to ask you this question. What does until death do us part mean when the healthy spouse is ready to date others?
What's died is our relationship as spouses. What I commit myself to frequently is caring for you as another human being with the very best of my ability. But I need intimacy that you can no longer offer me. And you may need intimacy that I can no longer offer you. It doesn't mean I don't love you. It just means I can't do this the way we used to.
And it's okay. The relationship essentially isn't what it was. And so you mourn the loss of the relationship, even though that person still exists in your world.
Yeah.
I know Sandi's encountered a lot of these situations where we will be caring for a diagnosed spouse, and there's a healthy spouse still in the picture.
Yeah, and the hardest thing is when the kids or the other family members are really sitting in judgment rather than acknowledging the pain that somebody has experienced up until they found relief from the pain.
Until you walk in their shoes. Sandi, do you have
I fully support that. We have families. I feel like we're seeing more and more couples where we're seeing the spouse come in and then their loved one is out living their life without them. It's heartbreaking, without a doubt. But I do, and when they do approach me, I don't approach them. I let them come to me, and then I let them know it's okay. Like we want you to have a life and a relationship. And as you were saying today, you're not going to have that same relationship. And if you can only give so much, then you give so much. And then the rest of your world continues, with you're still loving that person, but you have to take care of yourself as well.
Yeah. And I think it's tricky because the person living with dementia, if nothing else takes their life, dementia will take their life.
Right.
And so acknowledging one of us isn't going to make it out of this alive, and one of us still will have to survive. And did you want me not to thrive, or is it okay that I thrive?
Right.
And I don't know the answer for you. And I won't know the answer for me until I'm in that situation. And I think people think they know the answer before, but you don't.
Until you're in those shoes.
Yeah.
The episode was actually titled Until Death Do Us Part, However. And I featured Sandra Day O'Connor. I know you know her situation where she put her spouse in. He had Alzheimer's and he was in a facility and got a girlfriend.
Yeah.
And she continued to come visit, and three of them would have lunch together. It's a different meaning for the spouse with the diagnosis to have a girlfriend in assisted living rather than the healthy spouse going to the movies and having a relationship.
Yeah.
I think providing the support throughout the whole process makes it so much.
And helping the kids sometimes wrap their head around this.
Right. That is that's
because
a tough
there's
one.
levels of intimacy, physical intimacy, social intimacy, cognitive intimacy, emotional intimacy, spiritual intimacy. And I think different abilities for different people. And what's important is important.
Great way to put it. When is the right time to take the car keys away, and what is the best way to navigate that conversation? Let's just open a whole bunch of can of worms, okay? I mean, seriously.
Teepa can take this one for sure.
Right.
What I would say is, do you have a baseline on function? If you don't, that's your biggest mistake.
Okay.
Go ahead and early on say, you know what? I think we should all take the defensive driving test and see how we're doing on that.
We, meaning let's do this collectively.
Let's do this
I'm going to
collectively.
take it with you.
Yeah, I'll do it too. Wow. Because instead of pointing out that you have flaws and I want to make sure we catch them, it's like, let's do it. And I wonder what would happen if you weren't able to drive. Where do you like to go and how would you get there? Because if I don't have a solution for you not driving, then I'm going to have greater barriers to you not driving. And I'm going to ask you for a big favor. The doctor says he doesn't want you driving right now. For right now. He's doing some adjustments. He wants you not driving for right now. So I'm curious, would you be willing to navigate for me?
So present it as a temporary solution to a situation.
Forever always is harder.
That's a good
I
point.
mean, that's what we do when someone moves in and the family, the
right
kids
now.
say, for now, we're going to remodel your house. I mean, it's therapeutic, but it's
For
helping them
now.
to understand for now.
We have
right
a lot of
now.
long
Yes.
renovations going on.
Well, we're going to try this. If you
Yes,
absolutely
yes.
hate it, we'll revisit it.
Right.
But for right now, let's
It
try.
really
Let's
is
give it a
helpful,
try.
Very helpful.
Great.
That
Yeah.
time.
What is the best way to support someone with brain change in managing anxiety and depression? Sandy, you want to?
Again, meeting them where they are and, just trying to help them get through whatever it is. I mean, we're not going to fix their anxiety or depression, but we can at least help them feel better. Sometimes that does require medication. It depends on the doctor and where they want to be. But as Teepa and I both know, and we always, agree on this, that we do have to be careful with interactions, with falls, with anything else that you add on. I mean, I'm constantly looking up if this new medication, is it going to interact with this? Things like that. But we want to manage the depression and anxiety so they can live a happier, healthier life. So it's a balance. Teepa?
And I think one of the missing pieces for me is often in these, there's medication, we know that, but there's also how we interact.
Right.
So if I go, ooh, Sandy, I'm wondering. Breathe with me for a second. Yeah. This is a little intense, huh? Yeah. Thank you for being with me.
Thank you.
Yeah. And in that moment, what I figured out is Sandy actually does better with a partner than she does solo.
100%.
And if Sandy does better with a partner than solo, then when we walk into situations that are putting her brain at risk for anxiety or depression, I want her to have a partner when we do it. Whereas if I like to do things on my own, then I'd say, Teepa, you are so skilled at this. Well, of course I am.
Just knowing the right verbiage.
Knowing the right
Yeah.
verbiage and the right interaction for each person, picking up on it.
continuity of care,
Continuity of care.
low turnover.
Yes.
Can certain types of entertainment, like watching the news, agitate individuals with brain change? And what are good alternatives? I mean, let's
You
just.
know how I feel.
I know you do.
No news, no news,
Is
no
watching the
news.
news change your brain and agitate you?
Can it give you brain change?
I
Right?
think so. Yes.
That's the
you
tricky
walk
part.
into all these facilities and the news is always on, but oftentimes the generation that we're caring for, that's what they want to watch. What's the best way to migrate from the news to music, or what are the
I
alternatives?
have a big favor to ask of you. I know you're watching this. I wanted to have you look at something for me, though. So when we hit this one episode, could I interrupt you for just a second? I want to show you something. You were always great at bird identification. I have some different birds, and I have not a clue what I'm looking at. Would you take a look at this for me?
Certainly.
I'm going to put it up on the screen. And what I have is I've pre-looked at some things.
Right.
And so I know what you're about. Cars. I could look at animal. I could, what kind of dog is this? I mean, whatever it is, I'm calling on your expertise, engaging your brain, engaging your eyes, and we're moving away from this thing that I know is causing this phenomena.
I think that's why one of the reasons it's so important also that we understand our residents and our clients' background, our patients' background, because it's so nice when I walk into someone's room and I know he was a mechanical engineer, and that another resident was a dentist. So you know what questions to ask, what to talk about, just to help them feel more relaxed and just get through that process.
But I would say sometimes what we don't do is we interrupt in a negative way versus pause and wait for that pause in that broadcast and go, ooh, Brian.
But you gave them the permission. It was their choice to say, sure, I'll help you identify the birds.
You got it.
Not, Teepa, enough with the
I'm
news.
turning
No
that
more
off. That
Fox,
needs-
no more CNN. We're off of this. Go read a book.
You got it.
Good. Are routines essential for someone with brain change, or is spontaneity equally valuable?
We need the basis of routine and rhythm. And then every now and then something special, but I have to announce it with, oh, hey, Brian, I have something that I think you're really going to enjoy. A little different. Come check it out with me.
So you pique the interest.
I pique the interest
Yeah.
and I let the person know this is a little different. So for instance, if we usually do strength exercise, and today I brought somebody in with yoga, I don't want them to all of a sudden find out it's yoga when they're sitting there thinking they're going to do strength exercise because likely
Surprise.
not in a good way.
Yeah.
And so I'll say, I've got somebody different coming in today. Our regular person is off. So I'd love for you to be there and tell me what you think of them.
Okay, so you're really
It gives them a little ownership.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
We talk about no 2 days are the same.
No 2 days are ever
No
the same.
2 days are the same. Best ways to address drastically altered sleep patterns in someone with brain change.
Which of us first?
Right. Actually,
Teepa.
I want to
Teepa.
hear both of you because, this is
Okay.
it's a big one.
So yes, it is a big one.
Yeah.
And so I'm suspicious immediately of the possibility of the presence of Lewy body dementia because it's a hallmark of Lewy body. I'm also curious about the possibility of an inflammation, infection, a new episode of something that's driving this, a sense of anxiety, worry, depression, something that's soliciting this brain activation at a level that they can't bring it down in sleep. And if that's the case, I need to get super curious about what's going on here quickly because I don't want it to go for a while and cause whatever's going on. If it was acute, I want to know. If it's Lewy body, boy, do I want to know. Okay, we got a pattern here. Let's see if during the day maybe they can rest because they're not going to rest at night. They are full out, full open, and we've got a plan for that. Build up care around that. Or otherwise, we're trying to use drugs in an ineffective way when it's Lewy body.
Right. Sandy?
So true. Sleep is tough. It's a tough one, especially when we have new residents that move in, the pattern, the new environment, the new smells, the new sights, everything. So, when we have a resident that just can't sleep, or they're new to the house or something like that, or we have a caregiver going to someone's house, I'll ask them, keep them with you. If they truly can't sleep, like you said, if you've ruled out, UTIs and this and that and any other medical condition, or working with Lewy body type of dementia, then, having them with the caregiver throughout the night, if they can't sleep, it gives them security and it helps them feel safe. And that is the goal.
Interestingly enough, you ching someone who's recently lost a spouse, or they're in a single bed when they were in a double bed. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, I wonder if that could have an impact. And so let's try a double bed. Let's try a body pillow.
Right.
Is there anything that helps them rest? Or is it truly intrinsic and we need to work with them?
Exactly. But figuring it out.
Yeah.
How do you feel about aids such as CBD or THC with regards to sleep?
I'm not opposed. I think what we need is the right match for the person's history, story, dementia. We certainly have numbers of people that we work with that use THC, particularly Lewy body. We find Parkinson's.
Yeah.
We find that little bit of bump seems to really make a difference for people being able to relax into sleep and not have the level of distress that keeps them awake during those nighttime hours.
Thank you.
I agree. I'm a big believer. Yes.
Even if a person no longer recognizes their family, how crucial are family visits for their well-being?
For whose well-being?
Well, for both, actually.
I knew that was coming.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think I don't want to feel like I'm abandoning somebody that I still love and care about. But my expectations on visit need to change. So I need to come into it and I need to say, Brian, it is so good to see you. How you been?
Fantastic.
Good. You look good.
Well, thank you.
As opposed to, hey, Dad, how have you been? Because then it's me hoping that you'll know who I am. I'll use Brian because
that's the name I recognize.
That's the name you recognize. The relationship is gone.
Right.
But could you still like visiting with me?
Yeah.
And it really depends on how I behave myself and what our previous relationship might trigger in your thinking. But I can choose. Frequency does matter, though. How frequently I can handle that.
I heard a comment recently. My dad is in a facility and it's his birthday, but he isn't going to recognize me, so I'm not schlepping all the way over there. And of course, I just cringed and I'm like, how do I address that?
Sounds like there's lots of issues going on.
Lots of issues, no doubt. But I'm like,
more than
this
just
isn't
not
necessarily
hesitation.
for
Yes.
you. It's for Dad. And he may not recognize you as you, but you're familiar.
Yeah. So I admit that individual day may not matter, but the lack of celebration of somebody being who they are, that's hard. That's hard. That speaks to really how burned out was I before the placement.
Right.
I get asked literally almost, with every admission, usually every week, someone will come up with the question, hey, how often should I visit my mom? I only saw her twice a week, in the other facility. And I always say, let's see how it goes, especially with the new move-in. We want to kind of get them to help them to adjust to their new environment. But I do encourage visits. I do encourage on both ends, even if they're uncomfortable with it. I try to help educate them so they become more comfortable in that space with their loved one.
And sometimes I'd say conversation is not the thing.
So just
I may
there,
actually
just
come on in
yes,
and
yes.
bring something with me that they like to look at. And I'll say, take a look at this. What do you think? And it could be a model car. It could be just a picture. It could be
Birds in a book.
book.
Yeah.
It might be, who knows what it is, but I'm not trying to have a conversation or try to elicit memories. I'm just going to basically spend a little bit of time. What I would say is keep it short and keep it simple.
And just be.
Just be
present.
And maybe put the baggage aside and just exist in that moment.
Or say, I could really use some help on this visit. I'm not sure how it's going to go.
Right.
Would you mind sitting in with us? Because I'm a little nervous about how it might go.
And I do that frequently. And as I have our caregivers as well. I might want to sit with them just for the first 15 minutes, see how it goes. It does help soothe for sure.
What are strategies that can help manage a caregiver's stress and prevent burnout?
Take time for you. It's one of the hardest things to convince people to do,
Sure.
because their feeling is, well, but who will do that if I'm not there? And it's like, well, let's figure that out. Let's take a pause here and let's figure out, who could you call in? They won't do it the way you did. It won't be as perfect. It won't be the same. But I want you to figure out how you're going to be able to keep going if and when the person isn't able to do that. You have needs that aren't their needs anymore.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to meet those needs? Let's work on it.
Yeah.
A little at a time, at least.
Sandy.
100%. I'm just providing the support for the family, for the resident, for the client,
Okay, I want to ask, in both of your opinion, what is the best way for caregivers to educate themselves on what they're working on, whether it's a client with Parkinson's or brain change, whatever they're doing? What's the best way to just continue to educate?
Two options. If you're someone who doesn't like group work, find someone who's skillful and work with them in a relationship. If you are comfortable being in a small group or a medium-sized group, start going to the group and at first listen, and then start sharing, and then build your relationship with the group so you have the support you need as you're moving forward. I tend to recommend a leader of a support group that has an educational background and an educational bias, so that it's not just sharing of my feelings, but sharing of experiences. And how does that relate to different dementias? How does that relate to this situation? So that there's forward movement in the group.
Understanding their experiences and sharing them can move you leaps and bounds forward, for sure.
About 80% of our staff here in Dallas are foreign-born immigrants. Clearly, English is not their first language. What do you recommend in terms of communicating, training? Where do we go with that?
Yeah, so one of the first things to acknowledge is, if my mother tongue has a different rhythm to it, as a person living with dementia, what's going to end up happening is they don't even speak English. Well, they actually could speak relatively clear English, but because the rhythm's off, I really want to get better at, so Sandi, something to drink. Using a visual cue in combination with the words,
Right.
so that there's a greater probability the person living with dementia has a chance of appreciating what I'm trying to communicate, even though my English may not be perfect and the rhythm's off.
A visual.
Yeah, more visual.
Yes.
No,
Sandy,
first of all-
I know you're challenged day in and day out
Yes.
working with staff that English isn't their first language, and they probably even speak 2 or 3 other
They
languages
do.
before they speak
They're
English.
brilliant. They speak multiple languages. But it's a challenge because they don't always understand what we're trying to explain to them. So I'm learning daily how to explain to each caregiver on a different level what it is I'm trying to help them understand. So education is a huge part of my world with the caregivers, with the residents, with the families, with all of our staff, actually, and helping them to understand that just because our caregiver says, okay, I understand, it doesn't mean they necessarily understand. So I do a lot of, okay, let's talk about what I just said. Let's talk about what I just did. I'll do a lot of role modeling like Teepa does with the arms and the holding them as we're walking, the eye contact. And that's how they learned, I think, more effectively than just read this, answer these 5 questions, and then we'll move on. We do a lot of one-on-one in our care homes because that is the most effective way.
And I would add, we think language, but I'm going to say culture differences are really huge
Yes,
too.
they are.
How we view our elders, how we view someone who's different than me, how I view you. And so those interactions are flavored by both of us having a cultural background and really helping people appreciate it can really vary. And so please don't take it personally, even though it feels personal. It could be a cultural variation. And you want to adapt to me because I'm doing the best I can to adapt to my brain change. But at the same time, sometimes there's a mismatch. And being willing to say, let's take a pause here and let's have you work over here a little bit. And let's see if we can figure this out, because it doesn't feel comfortable any which way we look at it for either of us right now.
I do ask a lot of questions with our staff.
Teepa, what is your favorite elder care related book? other than the one that you wrote?
I think moments of joy, which I think creating moments of joy, which is Bracky. I can't remember her first name. Jolene. But it's a great book. It's creating those moments of joy, finding them and figuring it out. So I see her as someone who has written something that has value.
You talk a lot about finding the moments of joy. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, this condition is really hard. It's really challenging. It's really difficult. There are going to be lots of time where it's like painful and it hurts and it's uncomfortable and it's frustrating. So if I can't find moments of joy, of pleasure, I will burn myself out rapidly and I won't want to be here anymore. And for many people living with dementia, they need me. So how can I find those moments so I have that energy to keep going one more time? And then I find it because now it fills me up and now I've got that to go to the next place that needs to be gone to.
A friend of mine's a musician and he has a song called Little Victories. Every day there's just a little victory, a win, something. Great.
Yeah.
Sandi, favorite elder care related book?
My favorite book is Understanding the Changing Brain by Teepa Snow,
Teepa
right
Snow,
here.
Of course. Maybe she'll autograph
I
your copy.
could read it over and over again. I have a few books that I love, but that one, it has definitely set the tone for how I function in this world.
I love it.
Thanks.
Teepa, what haven't I asked you that I should? Since the kitchen drawer is open and we've covered a whole smorgasbord of everything.
Yeah. How would you recognize or how would I recognize our first brain changes? What do you think? What would you pick up on? If something was changing for you, what would it be?
If something was changed, let me just better understand the question. If you and I were in a relationship and all of a sudden I noticed something was off.
Yeah. Would you think it was you or me?
Oh, I definitely think it was you.
Yeah. And that's the tricky part. How do we start to ask the question, is it you or is it me? Or is it both of us that are changing, one of us with dementia and one of us with not understanding it's dementia.
And understanding somebody with brain change, it's a whole new language.
It's a whole new life.
Yeah.
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 And I think we ask people to enter that world with nothing.
No skills, no background, no education, just come on in. I always say, navigating the complex maze of elder care, if I told you tomorrow that you were going to sell life insurance, and you're like, well, I didn't pass my series. It doesn't matter. You're going to do it tomorrow. There's no choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the hardest parts for family is that feeling of I have to. And it's like, well, do you? Or is there a way you can still have a relationship and not take that on?
And in a way, look at it as it's an honor. You're caring for someone that can no longer think for themselves, dress themselves, bathe themselves, do for themselves. And there's a sense of gratification in there somewhere.
But if it's not a good fit.
If it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit.
It's not a good fit.
Yeah.
And find a way to be part of their life and not put yourself in that space because it's a miserable space to be in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sandi, what haven't I asked you that I should?
I think helping other people understand how to effectively work with everyone with brain change, with people with brain change. I think there's so many questions out there that people guess at answers. They're just not quite sure.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think education.
Educate. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
and I'd
great.
say skill building, which it sounds like you work hard to build skills, not just knowledge, but skill.
We are all about the skills and understanding and just the compassion of what we do.
All right, on to the nugget portion of this episode. Somebody sent me this, and it's a great visual, and I love this quote. I cannot, for the life of me, read who said it, so forgive me for not giving credit. A diagnosis is not your identity. It's an explanation of what is going on. I think that is beautiful.
So wonderful.
I'm sure you wrote it. And I give you
I'm sure she did.
No, but I do love it because it is.
It says it
diagnosis
all.
is something I'm living with.
Yeah,
Not
right.
me.
It does not define
It's
who
not
you
me,
are.
I'm living with
Correct.
it. All right, on to the lightning portion of this episode. This is an opportunity for viewers to get to know both of you Non-clinically, this is the personal Sandi and the personal Teepa. The way we're going to round robin first Sandi, then to Teepa, then back to Sandi. Sandi, where were you born and raised?
Savannah, Georgia.
Teepa.
Morgantown, West Virginia.
College and degree.
University of Georgia, education and nursing.
I did Duke University for my undergraduate in zoology, and then my master's in occupational therapy at UNC Chapel Hill.
I wanted to major in zoology. Funny.
Sandi, worst modern invention.
I think social media, especially when you're working with the young adults that don't know quite how to navigate that.
Teepa.
And I would say ear pods.
I couldn't agree.
Because I mean, it's
Please,
like, are you talking to me, or are you,
right.
are you talking to somebody on the phone that I don't even know?
Sandi, how many miles a year do you fly?
Many.
Teepa.
Way more.
Teepa, how many do you fly a year?
I would say I'm working on my second million miles with Delta, so I'd say probably over 100,000.
And so how many days a year are you?
It's not so many how many days anymore. It's where do I go? Like going to Australia and back, going to Hawaii and back, Malaysia and back, doing UK and back. I mean, when you do a few
That's
of those,
a lot of jet lag.
Iceland and back.
Sandi, are you still in touch with childhood friends?
Yes, I am.
Teepa.
Yeah, but fewer these days. There are fewer of them still around.
Yeah, I understand that happens. Sandi, weather preference, hot or cold?
Cold.
Ooh, warm.
Warm. Sandi, silliest fear?
Heights.
Good question.
Thank you.
Really, silliest fear. Probably garter snakes.
Okay,
It's like they can't really
Sandi,
do
one
anything.
thing you bring everywhere with you?
My phone.
Oh, a coffee mug.
Interesting. Call or text?
Text.
Text.
Ever lived abroad?
I have not.
Yes.
Dream job as a child?
Veterinarian.
Oh, me too.
Oh, look at y'all. Favorite movie genre?
Oh, goodness. Teepa?
Comedy, romantic comedy. I mean, they're always funny. I mean,
All
I
right.
like the story.
Anything that makes me laugh. Right?
There you go.
Yes.
All right, back to Sandi. Can you change a tire?
Absolutely not.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm impressed.
Of course you can, Teepa.
Of course. She wears a cape.
I'm from West Virginia. Of course, you have to change the time.
Sandi, iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
iPhone.
There you go.
Only because you make me.
Are you? Well, not date anybody with an Android. That ship sailed. Are you sentimental?
Very.
Are you sentimental?
Ooh. Yes and no.
Karaoke, yes or no?
No.
Yeah.
Really? One more tequila. Do you believe in aliens?
No.
Ooh.
Well, actually, let's go back to me.
Enough about me. Let's talk about me.
Enough about you, Teepa. Actually, I do think there is another life out there somewhere.
I'm sure there must be. I mean, good heavens, we can't.
We're not that special.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, there are other people in other countries, so why not in
Other
worlds?
planets.
Yeah.
Amen. All right, last question. Sandi, what is the most gratifying part of your job?
Oh, working with you, Brian.
Oh, don't even start. I'm just going to skip to Teepa. What is the most gratifying part of your job?
Helping people find those aha moments. The aha where they go, okay.
That's how to do it.
Okay. That moment of epiphany of like, oh, now I get it. And that's just so much fun.
I didn't think I would say this, but it just came to mind. I have to say, our last episode, communicating with people with brain change, was my big aha moment. And I reference that episode all the time as I try to learn how to communicate with people with brain change. So thank you for that aha.
You're
A
welcome.
lot of ahas.
Cool.
All right. Thank you both for being here today, as the time
As the
changes.
sun sets.
Exactly. This has been incredible. And it's a true honor to have you on the show. And I really appreciate it. Thank you for being here as well. Happy to see you. Thank you for watching. If you want to see this episode or any past episodes, you can dial us up on manchesterlivingpodcast.com or on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or wherever you get your podcasts. If there's anything I can do for you, don't hesitate to reach out directly. I will put both of their contact information up before the credits if you want to reach out to them directly. Thanks for watching today.